This video is kind of concentrated on towards alleviating the fear of death, of losing at death, losing the awareness of yourself, and also the concept of non-duality or anything that would lead a person to fear the loss of consciousness or the loss of self or whatever. Now, that's not necessarily the main focus of this video, but it plays an important role in enlightenment, like Buddha enlightenment and stuff like that. Because there are fears that prohibit a person from moving forward, spiritually speaking. So if you fear being mauled by a lion or killed by a grizzly bear, in those situations, you're not going to become a hunter. You're not going to go on hunting trips. If you fear crashing a motorcycle and dying at high speeds and stuff like that, you're going to avoid riding motorcycles. Well, the same thing holds true with enlightenment. There are fears that are sometimes, or most of the times, not associated with roadblocks to enlightenment. They're not necessarily associated at an awareness level, and yet they are definitely roadblocks. Fear of annihilation is a definite roadblock to enlightenment, which would explain why so few people ever become enlightened. You have to be fearless. It's difficult, if not impossible, to force yourself to become fearless. But at the same time, there's a way to circumvent that by practicing love in your life. And love will extinguish fear. It is a consequence of love. It's a byproduct of love. You don't have to focus on the elimination of fear. It just dissolves. So, to get on with this, I'd like you to pay careful attention to this. Now, because I think this talk is super important. And the reason I want you to pay attention is because I may not be the best communicator. Let's back that up. I'm definitely not the best communicator. And so you are personally going to have to go beyond being spoon-fed. You are going to have to dig deep into your mind and brain to pay attention to be able to understand what I'm talking about. And not necessarily because the subject matter is difficult to understand, but that I personally and difficult to understand, although the subject is also. So let's start off by talking about the nature of God, the nature of the God that Jesus prayed to, the nature of Brahma, the nature of the essence of where Brahma is formed, the nature of Brahman, the nature of nothingness. So, what I'm trying to get at is there's a misconception of God taught by Christianity, probably taught by every faith and religion in one way or another, but definitely in Christianity. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes when I talk this way, people would assume, oh my gosh, John is anti-Christian. And that's not true. That's not true at all. In fact, I would dare to say that I am more Christian than any Christian theology, faith, organized religion on the planet. I actually believe the nature of who Jesus was and what he represented, rather than a dogma taught by organized religion. So don't mistake that I am preaching against Christianity in the sense that I'm against Jesus the Christ. No, not at all. I am 100% all in on Jesus the Christ, in who he was as a Savior, as everything. So, let's move forward. The God that Jesus prayed to, Brahma, and I use the word Brahma only because most people that study deeply into this type of spirituality understand from a philosophical standpoint of Eastern philosophy, Hinduism as such, they actually do identify the creator God that Jesus prayed to as Brahma. Now, are you going to get that by studying all the ancient writings? Not necessarily, but if you pray to God and ask that God would enlighten your mind and brain as you study things, then yes, you will understand that from studying ancient Hinduism, you will find that the deity Brahma is the creator God. And a lot of people misconstrue that creator God of all things as Shiva, but Shiva is not. He's secondary. Anyways, the nature of Brahman, which is the great nothingness, the darkness, the foundation of all things created by Brahma. What is the form of the God of all things, the God of this reality, of the universe, of everything? What is his form? Now, if you understand the nature of Brahman being nothingness, then you absolutely must conclude. Now, when I say conclude, I'm not talking about conclusion from my standpoint. I'm talking about conclusion from a intellectual, scientific mind. But that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a standpoint of knowing because of visions and revelations and direct communication with this God. But I can't relate that to you other than saying that's my testimony. But you can extrapolate through science and wisdom and knowledge to gain the same understanding, although you're not going to gain it initially as an enlightened point of view that only God can convey directly. So logically and intellectually speaking, if you understand and know that the foundation of all things is nothing, then the body form of God could not have possibly been anything other than an invisible nothingness. And then when you read in the Christian Bible that the gods formed man in their own image and stuff like that, who is this God that is speaking, or who are these gods that are speaking that they created man in their own image? It may sound bizarre to the point where you would think, oh my gosh, John is off his meds. He's delusional. He's lost his mind. He's off in woo-woo land. When I say that in all likelihood that was a reference coming from possibly the Anunnaki, if in fact there ever were Anunnaki, which may very well have been a former life form of advanced, I don't even want to say aliens, because somehow they had to be able to live on this planet Earth and breathe the air and be subject to the radiation of the sun. So they had to be biological life forms that were also godlike in their power and authority. And so they created man in their own image. And Christianity misunderstands that as if the God that Jesus prayed to assisted or did the creation of man, which is not true at all. Because the God that Jesus prayed to had no form. I mean, the God that Jesus prayed to, Brahma, all forms are a derivative or are a outward expression of him. He could appear as a stereo speaker and talk to you. He could appear as my iPad and talk to me. He could appear as a fly flying around and appear to me. All things, including myself. So in other words, another human being could be Brahma if he wanted to, but the natural state of Brahma is nothingness. And that's what the point I'm trying to make that is super important for you to understand. That the true nature of self isn't a physical, isn't a soul, it has no form, just exactly like Brahma has no form, unless it wants a form. And then it can take any form it wants, because it is the master of all forms. And when I say it, I'm referring to Brahma, I'm referring to Christ, I'm referring to the essence of your own self. particularly at this time, your own self has taken on the form of a human being. But you're not a human being. And so the point I'm trying to say is when you die, this is super important to understand, that think of the complexity of a bicycle, just a regular bicycle, not that complex of a machine. But when you get on a bicycle and you ride it, the comparison between the inanimate bicycle and the human being riding it is, you can't say exponentially more complex, because that would refer to some sort of a number, a measurement that can be measured because it's within the realm of measuring when you say exponential. But if you say infinitely more complex, then it falls outside the range of measurable comparisons. So the difference between the bicycle and the rider is infinite. The rider is a human being, and it's infinitely more complex, more advanced than the actual bicycle. The human being built, created a foundry for the metal, did all the things to create the bicycle. The bicycle can't create the human, but the human can create the bicycle. But the human is woefully less of a comparison between the human and the true self of what you are. Let that sink in for a moment. If you need to meditate upon that, do so, because this is damned important for you to understand. You are not the thoughts of a human being. You are not the sensory aspects of a human being. When you die, you shed the body. You're no longer, shall I say, held hostage. And I don't like that term either, because being in the form of a human, or being trapped in the body of a physical human, is not a negative thing. It is like the most incredible blessing that could possibly be. If you think it's a problem, then you need to pray for forgiveness for not trusting God, Brahma, for not trusting Jesus the Christ. Pray for forgiveness. Pray for understanding, because the fact that you are a human being is an immense blessing and advantage for you personally for all of eternity. Though it may appear to be an incredible, difficult phase that you're going through. You're gonna die, you get sicknesses, you have cancer, you've got learning disabilities, you stubbed your toe. Who cares? You're going to die. Okay, big deal. But you're none of those things. Just like you're not the bicycle that you're riding. So people fear, oh, I'm going to die. I'm going to lose my relationship with my dear wife. I'm going to lose my relationship with my dog or my cat. Or I'm going to lose all the memories and thoughts of joy and happiness and all these things. I'm going to cease to exist. Well, yeah, just like the bicycle's going to cease to exist. But the true essence of what you are not only doesn't cease to exist, but it never lapses for even a picosecond. It simply jumps from what it is now to its primary state of being, which is, I'd like to say nothingness, but that isn't true either, because Catholicism has come up with a somewhat inspired understanding of life after death that is a temporary situation, but they talk about paradise as well as what's the now it escapes me, paradise and hell, but they don't refer to it as hell. Purgatory, yeah. And but in those states of being, you also are trapped or contained within a soul. So you got a human being here, there you have a soul. You're still contained within a soul, although it's different than a human body. But the true nature of your foundation is no different than Brahman, no different than Brahma. It is the true nothingness foundation. Now, when I say nothingness, do I mean nothing? No. What I mean is you cannot identify the nature of the essence by using words and terminologies that are based in this realm. Because this realm is based in things. Something. No thing. But things are just imaginary creations of Brahma. And so when you die, your essence of what you are continues on. The essence of what you are contained in a soul is the same kind of leap between the bicycle and the human being. The human being and the essence of what you are is not lower. The essence of what you are is not lower than the human being. You're not going to lose yourself, your essence, your soul, or anything like that. No, it continues on for eternity, forever. And it is infinitely more aware and complex than what you are right now as you're watching this video. Now, here's some things to think about. For instance, what can you identify that isn't held captive in this physical reality realm? Held captive in your mind, in your brain, in your awareness, in your body. One thing would be love. People think, well, love is some sort of enzyme, chemical reaction in the brain or whatever. No, it isn't. That's bullshit. Love has nothing to do with this physical reality. If you have love in your heart and soul, it isn't in this physical reality. You think it is because you experience it, but you're not experiencing it from a physical standpoint. Your body is reacting to it, meaning you're making choices and decisions and stuff like that, but it isn't the essence of what can be defined in this reality. In other words, think about love. You can contemplate upon the concept of love for weeks, months, a lifetime. You're never going to put love into words or be able to convey it to a person that doesn't have love any more than I can convey the taste of a lemon without you actually eating a lemon. Why? because love isn't in this reality that we exist right now. Love is in the essence of what you are, that, in other words, when you die, if you have love in your heart and soul, it will be with you after you die. And love is a thing that is directed towards others. In other words, if non-duality was the true nature of everything, not meaning things, but meaning your soul and your essence and everything. If it were true that there was only one spiritual source of all things, love could not exist, because you can't love without something to love. So that would also mean that there are others to love. So when you love your friends, your spouse, your spiritual teachers, whatever it is in that nature, that is eternal. Can you destroy that love? Yeah, you can do that. You can do that here. Typically, you can destroy it through the nature of ignorance, meaning you're being tested by the things that you are confronted with, and you fail those tests, and you succumb to the lies, rather than holding in your heart and soul the faith that love is a real thing. So, to continue on that thought, as a way to cement further. Now, this is, maybe this is where I'm not a very good communicator, so maybe you need to extrapolate or whatever, but this was a thought that came into my mind that might help you understand the true nature of yourself and how you can relate to the spiritual source of what you are. So if a person were completely and utterly unaware, they were raised, in other words, the story, if you've read about Buddha, he was raised as a prince and was not allowed to learn the nature of death and suffering. And so he went on his own. That was the impetus for him to follow a path towards enlightenment. The curiosity of what is going on beyond his cloistered life. So if you take that type of comparison and consider yourself to be unaware of warfare and unaware of what a sword is. You're absolutely unaware. And you see a person in their military, let's take 1,000 years ago, you see a person in their military attire with their helmets and all of this kind of stuff and their sword and everything. You would be assuming that you are completely unaware. You would have no idea of what they are or what they're all about. You could talk to them and think that, well, I don't know, their military attire, maybe that's to keep briar bushes from scratching their skin if they're walking through the woods or whatever. And the military person is sharpening the sword with a stone or whatever. And you look at that and you try to figure out what they're doing. And well, since you know nothing of warfare and stuff like that, you conclude, confidently so, that they are building muscles in their arms. It's like lifting weights, for instance. And they're, oh, okay, I totally understand. That man is strengthening his arm, and he's found a stone to brush against this hard metal, which gives a bit of resistance. That's why he's doing what he's doing. And you base your entire knowledge around this false notion that this person is strengthening their arm. Now, from the military personnel, he's going to battle, and the sword, obviously, is to kill people, to defend his homeland, or whatever the case may be. But it's certainly not to build his muscles in his arm. But you believe totally that it is to build the muscles. Now, if you take that comparison and extrapolate that to you right now, you are the person that thinks he is strengthening his muscles because you believe you're a human being. You believe that you think, that you have intelligence, that you are aware of your mother and father and your girlfriend, and you're aware of money and luxuries, you're aware of food, you're aware that you don't want to die because you enjoy life, you don't want to die because you just simply don't want to die. Bob Arness. Sorry about that. These things are a false understanding of reality. And when you think that way, Bob Arness, you're going to misconstrue the nature of your soul. You're going to think that you're a human being, but you're not a human being. And so when you die, you're going to find out that you were so absolutely wrong about what you thought you were, that what you thought you were going to lose when you die. You are so absolutely wrong that, in fact, when you die, it is like an unbelievable opening of awareness and joy and happiness that it cannot even be imagined as a human being, how wonderful it will be. However, there is reincarnation. You're coming back here again. That's the wheel of samsara. You're coming back until you're no longer needed to come back. When I say needed, there are two reasons for coming back: for your own personal growth, for your own personal foundation, and to help others. For instance, the nature of why Jesus came as Jesus wasn't necessarily, or wasn't at all, because of samsara, or because he needed to perfect himself, but entirely about being a bodhisattva, essentially, to come back to help us, to give us guidance and direction, to help us advance so that we can end the wheel of samsara for our personal self. And so others may very well be doing the exact same thing. However, when we get here, when we're born as a little baby, we lose the understanding of what we truly are, and we can only, as a human being, access a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of what we really are. And the reason we can only access a tiny fraction of what we really are is it's no different than the bicycle rider. The bicycle isn't able to do what you want it to do. For instance, if you're riding it, maybe you want it to fly from this canyon to the next canyon. Maybe you want it to ride over water. Maybe you want it to transport you in time forward or backwards, whatever, because your mind can do all of these things. Because your mind can remember what you were doing 20 years ago or extrapolate what you're going to do 20 years from now. But you can't make the bicycle do that. The bicycle is only capable of making the wheels go around if you pedal it. Your physical human body is the exact same type scenario. The essence of what you are when you're born, you're stripped of all these supernatural powers and intelligence and wisdom and millions upon millions, if not billions of years of progress, stripped entirely. And now you exist as this rudimentary human being that is only capable of such this tiniest fraction of what you truly are. And then I'd like to go on, but I'm going to cut that short. But as a physical human being, you're able to alter through, meaning regression towards evil or progression towards becoming one with God. You can do that here as a physical human being because the most powerful part of your true essence of what you are can come with you as a human being. But you're unaware of what that is, because what is that? It's Brahman. It's the essence of Brahman. It's the nothingness. It's the invisible. It is the essence of what you are that you can bring forth here, because you can't divorce yourself from it. It is what you are. And you can make that more powerful here. And that is what you are doing. That's the nature of what you're doing. Why did God, Brahma, create this reality? Because Brahma, God, loves you. And he created this reality so that you can become the best that you can be. And when and if you become one with God, that creates one more friend between you and Brahma. That's the whole point and purpose of why Brahma created this reality. He did not create it as a Disneyland exercise in fun, joy, pastime, playing games, whatever you think it might be. No. This creation is a creation so that Brahma can gain friends. We think of God as being all-knowing, all-powerful. There's nothing that can be added or taken away from God. But in fact, there is something that can be added, and that's you personally. Your love can be added to God, and God's love can be added to you when you become one with God. And there again, that is the point and purpose of the creation of this reality. So lastly, I've already said this, but I'm going to reemphasize it. When you read and understand things that are coming from typically enlightened gurus, they speak of nothingness. The source of all reality is nothingness. Nothingness is all capitals, or it should be in all capitals, because it doesn't mean the same thing as you think it is. In your human form and understanding, you think of nothingness as all lowercase letters. But when an enlightened guru is talking about nothing, he's using all capitals. It's an entirely different thing than what you think it is. The nothingness he is speaking about is not the nothingness that you are thinking about. His nothingness is not the same as your nothingness. But there's no other way to talk about it. There's no other way to talk about the taste of a lemon other than to show you the picture of a lemon, for you to see my own expression on my face when I bite into a lemon. But for me to do that isn't the actual taste of the lemon being conveyed to you. So when an enlightened guru talks about nothingness, it's the same type analogy. You are not understanding what he is trying to convey, or she is trying to convey. But that's all they can do. That's all the words they can do. It is up to you to study and extrapolate and to pray to God and to try to understand what the meaning of nothingness is, because it isn't what you think it is. All right, I think that does it for this particular talk this morning. And I'm going to be working on a clock for my wife. She wanted me to build some sort of a clock. And so I will, show you what it looks like when I get her done in a couple of days, maybe on the next video I make. In the meantime, I love you. I pray for you. I hope that you gain something from this. And I hope and pray that you make the effort to pray to God and ask for miracles. Ask for understanding. Ask for assistance. You actually have to do that. The reason I say you have to do it, there's no way for you to get the taste of a lemon without it coming from God. And you know I'm speaking metaphorically. There's no way for you to gain the knowledge and things of enlightenment without it coming from God. And you're not going to get it without asking, humbling yourself through prayer. Maybe it requires fasting. Whatever it requires, seek after that. You're going to be amazed at what can manifest. I think the very last thing I wanted to cover, and it's not something that I was going to talk about, but it came up with another person I was talking to. I'm never going to talk in depth about miracles because I don't want to promote that type of relationship between you and I. But I have had miracles in my life starting when I was probably, in my early 20s. And I didn't recognize it at the time, of course. But since then, I've had more miracles than you can imagine. And I'm not talking about normal everyday miracles. I am talking about real bona fide miracles that are beyond what you can imagine, like what you would think Jesus was involved with. And I don't want to talk about those things because, as I said, I don't want that to be a relationship between you and I in regards to miracles. But the reason I'm bringing it up is you can expect to have miracles if you exercise the faith necessary and the physical effort of studying, of praying, of seeking after things. You know, in Christianity, there's the false teaching of don't seek after miracles and blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. Seek after miracles. If they don't happen, don't let that be a negative thing for you. But if it is a negative thing, well, that might just destroy you, spiritually speaking. But on the same token, if those miracles do occur, those things are what lead to God enlightenment and Buddha enlightenment, are the miracles. And without those miracles, you're typically not going to advance very far because this physical reality is too mundane to move too much farther beyond what a learned guru might be. And I think what you're seeking after, you should seek after miracles, but don't be discouraged when they don't happen. But when they do happen, just play it by ear. In other words, should you talk about them? Should you keep your mouth shut about them? Don't know. That's entirely up to you. Personally, I generally think it's best to keep your mouth shut about them. Just recognize that those things are for your own personal edification. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Again, I say, truly, I love you. I look forward to further videos. I look forward to your spiritual growth, and I hope the best for you.